What happened in practice for the Singapore Grand Prix? Ferrari are looking good. And I've just gone straight into it. It's Ferrari Friday. It's Forza Ferrari Friday. Let's get the alliteration going, Tommy.
Yep. You're setting yourself up for a horrendous fall when Max Verstappen wins by 40 seconds. Surprisingly, actually, I did not see this coming. Ferrari just didn't think they'd be good around here after being really good at Monza because it's all about straight line speed, but they've been very tasty indeed.
This is a big old W for Ferrari so far this weekend. Not so much of a W if we look at FP1 and lizards. Lizards everywhere. And one particular lizard got yeeted. So RIP lizard. And I think it was Fernando Alonso that yeeted it. Yeah, that was certainly something that could throw a little curveball on Sunday if maybe one of the lizards doesn't like Max Verstappen winning by 20 seconds and just runs on the track for a little cheeky, well-timed VSC. You know what I mean?
Wow. That'd be something, wouldn't it, of all the things to happen? Like, how did Max Verstappen's winning streak end? A lizard. What a crazy thing.
Absolutely. So free practice 1, it was Charles Leclerc fastest, ahead of Carlos Sainz. Max Verstappen not too far behind as well. It was quite close at the top as Frank enters the room again.
He loves entering. A podcast. Honestly, he knows when I'm recording.
Now, I think for free practice 1, the drivers that struggled the most were the ones that had never driven around Singapore previously. Now, I'm not saying struggling in terms of hitting the barrier, but the likes of Lawson, Piastri, Sargent, they're all drivers that have not experienced the Singapore heat. There is no rest. There is no popping your visor open for a bit of cool air. It is intense. And it's a very difficult track as well, although slightly easier due to all those fiddly corners in the last sector being removed.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for those rookies. Logan Sargent in particular seems like he's struggling quite a lot compared to Albon.
But yeah, I think FP1 was more of a struggle for those drivers just getting used to the track. But in free practice 2, Liam Lawson, 12th fastest, faster than Yuki Tsunoda. It's not looking too good for Yuki at the moment. But before we dive into all of that, let's focus on Ferrari and a question from Joe Scacchetti. Is Ferrari this fast around Singapore, or are we setting ourselves up for another Sunday letdown? I've learned not to get too excited about them on a Friday. It's happening. It's happening, okay, everybody? It's happening. This weekend, Ferrari lock out the front row. And look, Singapore, mate. If they manage to get a good quali in, and both of them are up there, one of two things are going to happen. One, it's a Ferrari 1-2. 2, it's a Ferrari double DNF whilst they both fight for the win, and they have a Monza, but this time not so lucky.
Yeah, I mean, if they have that Monza battle, there's not as many runoffs to skip over as they did in Monza when things get a bit too close. There's walls, so that could be very tasty indeed. If they manage to do this in qualifying, we'll get a fascinating race because it's a hard place to pass, even with DRS. But it is only Friday.
No,
but
it's not just Friday, Tommy.
Try saying
it's the
that
start of the end of the Red Bull domination. Their race pace didn't look anything crazily good. Like, it was very much in the midst of the Mercedes and so on. But if they're at the front, it's Singapore. It's a completely different ball game to if you're at the front of Monza. There's a lot more overtaking opportunities around Monza, despite it being quite difficult there. Singapore is a street track, so that will. I think strategy will play a much bigger part on Sunday if it is close at the front. And God, please give us what we have been asking for so many weeks, months. But no, Ferrari look like they've got the edge, at least at the moment, on the 1-lap pace, which kind of is a running trend. They have been quite good in qualifying. The race pace, we shall see. Also, worth mentioning, Red Bull, of course, down in 7th and 8th. Is it genuine? That's the question. Perez ahead of Verstappen. I'm just saying. I said that Perez is going to beat Verstappen this week. They look like they're struggling. I don't think for a second they're going to be 6-7 tenths off pole.
No,
but that is quite a large margin to be behind at the end of Friday, considering we've got one more practice session and then we're straight into quali. I think there's going to be a longer debrief for Red Bull this weekend than perhaps they've had over the course of the year.
I do genuinely think they are struggling a little bit. maybe just to find that setup. The drivers both were complaining on the radio about setup issues and the car not handling the way they want, which is
Well, Perez
probably
said that he felt like he was going to crash at all times, and
crazy
Verstappen
because
had a lot of complaining as well on the radio, didn't he?
yeah, and that's a car that has been so good, so on rails really, and it's probably a big shock. Like you say, I don't think they're going to be 7/10ths down, but maybe it means that in qualifying, well, we have seen it this year. They don't tend to just completely dominate in qualifying, so we could have a really really exciting quali on hands because there are other teams in the mix, but with Red Bull, I do think it's genuine. I don't think it's sandbagging or anything like maybe people think. They they
Why?
do- they don't
I don't
do that.
understand
Why?
why. Why
Yeah, like
would
why
they?
would they
There's
do that?
literally there's no gain to sandbagging at this stage in the season when they haven't sandbagged any other Grand Prix
No, no,
weekend.
they've
Really,
not. It's
we've
not
not
been
had a
like that.
conversation like this before, have we? This year, Carlos Sainz again looking really good. I would argue maybe Leclerc should have done a faster time in FP2. He was, I think, a couple of tenths or at least a tenth and a half up on Sainz going into that last sector, but the really interesting thing is that with Singapore, you can actually manage your tyres, even over the course of one hot lap, to be faster in certain sections than others. And it seemed as though Carlos just managed to execute on that last sector a little bit better than Leclerc. So that might be something that we see in qualifying as well, despite having the removal of that right, left, right that we had in that last sector. They're still having to manage their tyres.
They are indeed. Yeah, Carlos looking very good. Great to see him on the same level as Leclerc, and those two are going to be very evenly matched now, which is going to be exciting, if not a little scary, for Ferrari fans if they end up on the same bit of track again and fighting.
Yep, my heart will be jumping out my chest. Thank you, Tommy. Next question, Mersteel28. Do you guys think that Red Bull are realistically going to struggle this weekend, or will they get things sorted like they usually do? Now, we're speaking about the struggles. How far can they actually fix these problems? Because it's not as if we've got a Verstappen two tenths off and a Perez 8/10 off. Both of them at the same level, it seems, at the moment, at least over a one lap.
Yeah, it's not a case of Verstappen way down. You go, well, actually, Perez is here, so there's still performance, or equally the opposite way around. So they are. I do think, yeah, it's a genuine struggle at the moment. I don't think they're going to be 7/10ths off it in qualifying, but I do think they're on the back foot after the first day, and we've seen it before. They don't tend to
As
dominate
much
as much as they do in the
emphasis
rest.
in
Exactly. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
usually have a car set up for the race. They're very kind on their tires, which can be a bit of a disadvantage when it comes to qualifying when you want to be heating those up
Yeah.
aggressively, just like Ferrari do. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see. Next question, Sparty official. Are we going to see both Ferrari and Mercedes above Red Bull this weekend? I think Ferrari, there is a chance. I'm not even writing out Mercedes to potentially challenge for pole position. We know what Hamilton can do. George Russell up there in third for free practice too as well, only a couple of tenths off. It's not like Ferrari are home and dry in the front of the field. You've got both Mercedes, you've got Fernando Alonso doing Fernando Alonso things, as he always does. And then Lando as well. McLaren were looking very good in the sort of early stages of both the practice sessions. Lando doing a lot of laps on the hards, I think it was, and he was still very much up there with the times. So he's not one to really disregard. I don't think they probably have the one lap pace, but the McLaren might well come into its own again in the race. It's great to see Lando still up there. I think Oscar is going to struggle this weekend. It seems as though he's not taking to the Singapore track as quickly as perhaps Liam Lawson is in the AlphaTauri, but we shall see.
We sure will. It's going to be fascinating, though, that the fact that we've had this amazing battle all year for P2 behind Red Bull, and if Red Bull kind of fall into that mix where they are in that mix, it could be anyone for pole, and that is going to be so good. Can't wait already.
The one thing we should mention from free practice too is Alexander Albon, of course, having a great season so far, but having an ERS issue, which meant he missed most of free practice too, which was a shame. So Williams was 19th and 20th, which is a big thing for Williams because Albon is very much carrying that team with both of the straps of the rucksack over his shoulder. There's no heavy lifting going from Logan. We are saying that he hasn't been horrendous, but he's not been anywhere near the level that he should be, considering where the pace of that Williams has been at certain tracks this year, and it's Singapore. it's going to be a very difficult task for Logan to pull off anything in that side of the garage.
But Logan looks to be like really, really struggling with the car setup, and just he's obviously it's only practice, but he's kind of down at the bottom in both sessions by quite a margin. So yes, tough old track. So it's going to be tough for him, in my opinion. I know he's a rookie, but if Logan gets to the end of the season and hasn't scored a point, and Albon's bagged like 30 points throughout the season, it's hard to argue if Logan deserves another chance, because he doesn't need to be on Albon's level, but the Williams isn't a terrible car. It might not be great here, so he's maybe got a bit of a free pass here that there's no expectation. But when we get to the other circuits, he's going to have to start delivering.
And finally, let's talk about the new circuit layout. We've seen it now in action. It's around 10 seconds quicker, probably even more so when we get to qualifying. What do we think? Like, what's our first thoughts? Tommy, why don't you give me yours first?
I like it a lot. I think it's a lot better, personally. There's talk that it's only temporary because there's building work going on or something, and it might not actually be like a permanent change. I don't know how true that is. I've not seen anything about it or too much info, but what we've got at the moment, I think, is much nicer. I don't think it's a particularly great overtaking spot. It will require kind of breezing past someone before the braking zone, but there's no DRS there. But hopefully it just keeps things a bit closer, because 90-degree turns are just the worst for racing, as we've seen in Sochi.
They certainly are. I quite like it as well. I think it's faster. It kind of comes back to what we said in our predictions, I think, where I said that, look, without those fiddly corners, we get to the straights sort of in the first sector as well quicker. And then the field spread hopefully will be a slightly bit less. I still believe that after seeing that. And I think, no DRS on the new sector. Is it the right call? I don't think it will change much either way, to be honest with you. I don't think it's a long enough straight to.
If it's a Ferrari
really...
1-2, you'll say absolutely yes, it was
in
the
fact,
right call.
get rid of DRS for the whole circuit if it's a Ferrari 1-2 in qualifying. You know what I mean, Tommy? Come on. But no, I don't think it's really affecting either way. I think the drivers did actually call for it to be made a DRS zone due to the fact they believe that overtaking is going to be really difficult. But we knew that with Singapore. So
it's quite a long straight. You don't get much of that at Singapore. It's quite a long old run, so maybe
it's
it
not
would
the
be
hardest of braking zones, though.
This is
it?
the problem. It would be a DRS kind of motorway pass, which I'm not a huge fan of personally, rather than a great out braking maneuver, which we tend to see as they come out of that long hairpin and then into that next heavy right-hander before that long straight. Has kind of been almost the main overtaking point really there. So.
And that is it. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to this beautiful, wonderful Friday wrap-up of Ferrari being unreal. Tommy, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are, if you love the podcast and you love a lot of us chatting, there's something exciting being announced tomorrow. So keep your eyes
ears
out for that.
Ears peeled,
exciting
for extra
times.
Waffle. Premium waffle coming soon. And you'll see everything on that tomorrow. So look forward to that. And we'll see you very soon. Bye.
Bye.